They tell you Red Mountain erupted because of the Nerevarines' prophecy. They tell you the heart of Lorcan was destroyed, that Dagoth-Ur fell, that the Tribunal's power faded as it should. They tell you many things in Morrowind, truths wrapped in lies, wrapped in ash. But what if I told you the mountain still dreams? What if the greatest secret of the Dwemer wasn't that they vanished, but what they found before they did? What if every history book, every temple sermon, every Ashlander prophecy has been dancing around a truth so profound that reality itself recoils from its utterance? Stay with me. Subscribe if you dare to hear what the Ash whispers. Like this video if you want to know what lies beneath the lies. Comment below what you think happened to the Dwemer, because I promise you by the end of this tale, you'll question everything you thought you knew. This is the story of Dalvis Arobar, a Telvanni scholar who went looking for footnotes in history and found the margins of existence itself. This is the story of what Red Mountain truly guards. This is the story they bury deeper than any Dwemer ruin, more carefully than any sixth house shrine. The ash storms have been growing stronger lately, haven't they? The patterns more deliberate, the dreams more vivid. You felt it too, even if you won't admit it. That sensation that something vast and ancient is turning in its sleep beneath the caldera, that the mountain is counting down to something that was set in motion centuries before the Tribunal ever rose to godhood. They lied to you about Red Mountain, and Dalvis Arobar died learning why. Let me tell you what no one told you. The frequency in the Ash Dalvis Arobar had been dreaming in mathematics for 3 months. Not the comfortable formulas of traditional magic. This was different. Geometric impossibilities that hurt to visualize. Angles that shouldn't exist in 3-dimensional space. And always, that low thrumming frequency just below the threshold of hearing, like the mountain itself, was humming a song that predated words. She stood at the window of her tower in Sadrith Mora, watching ash fall in patterns that were too precise to be natural. The particles swirled in spirals that repeated every 47 seconds. She'd timed them obsessively. Spirals within spirals, each rotation slightly offset from the last, creating a 3-dimensional helix that would have been invisible to anyone not watching for it. "You're doing it again," Radin Velas said from the doorway. The Ashlander wise woman had arrived unannounced 3 days ago, with a warning Dalvis still didn't fully understand. "The mountain is speaking in the old tongue. You are the only one listening. The patterns are consistent across every ash storm from Alderaan to Molagmar," Dalvis said, not turning from the window. Her reflection in the volcanic glass looked gaunt, her red eyes rimmed with exhaustion. "I've compared reports going back 6 months. They're not random. They're structured. Tonal," Radin said quietly. The word hung in the air between them like a confession. Dalvis finally turned. "You knew. My grandmother knew. Her grandmother knew. We've been watching the mountain sing for generations, waiting for someone with the education to hear it as more than wind through ruins." Radin approached the window, her ash-grayed skin and traditional garments a stark contrast to Dalvis's Telvanni robes. "The Dwemer didn't vanish, scholar. They translated, and they left a message in the frequency." Dalvis felt her heart race. "Show me." That night they traveled to an Ashlander camp on the northern slopes of Red Mountain, so close to the ghost fence that reality seemed thin, stretched. The wise woman led her to a cave marked with symbols that predated even the Chimera, angular, precise, wrong in ways that made Dalvis's eyes water. Inside, carved into volcanic rock, were formulas, but not magical formulas. These were architectural plans for something that couldn't be built in 3 dimensions. Mathematical proofs that required time itself to be a physical material you could shape. Tonal frequencies notated in a script that hurt to read because each character existed in multiple states simultaneously. "Kagrenak's tools," Radin said, lighting a fungal torch. "Everyone thinks they were weapons, tools to tap the heart of Lorcan, but look closer at what's actually carved here." Dalvis did. And as she traced the lines with her fingers, feeling them vibrate beneath her touch, warm and alive, she understood. They're not weapons, they're tuning forks. For reality itself, Radin confirmed. The Dwemer weren't trying to become gods. They were trying to open a door, and they succeeded. Then where did the cave shuddered. Outside, the ash storm intensified, particles moving in patterns that now looked horrifyingly deliberate. And in the frequency of the wind, Dalvis heard it clearly for the first time. A voice, vast, ancient, speaking in harmonics that bypassed her ears entirely and resonated directly in her bones. "Come home!" She staggered backward, blood trickling from her nose. "What was—" "The architect," Raiden said grimly. "The consciousness that lives in the spaces between moments. The thing the Dwemer found. The thing that found them back." She grabbed Dalvis's arm. "I've been dreaming its mathematics because it's been dreaming you. It needs someone who can read the frequencies, scholar. It needs someone to finish opening the door." "Why me?" "Because you're Telvanni. Because you're arrogant enough to believe you can control what you discover. Because—" Raiden's eyes filled with something like pity. "Because you were born during a convergence event. Your soul resonates at the same frequency as the heart chamber. You're not studying the mountain, Dalvis. You're its echo. Act 2, Descent into the Architecture. The entrance to the deep ruins wasn't on any map. It couldn't be. It existed in multiple locations simultaneously, shifting based on the observer's perception and the current alignment of Nirn's moons. Raiden knew the ritual to stabilize it, a blood offering, a chant in pre-Chima dialect, and a tonal frequency hummed at precisely the right pitch. The rock face shimmered and opened like a wound. Inside, Dwemer architecture stretched impossible distances. Hallways that seemed to fold through dimensions, staircases that descended in directions that shouldn't exist. The brass construction hummed with residual power, geometric patterns engraved into every surface, creating a three-dimensional musical score. "Stay close," Raiden warned. "Time flows differently here. The Dwemer built these passages to exist between moments. You can age decades in seconds if you step wrong." They weren't alone in the ruins. The Centurion appeared from a side passage, but it moved wrong, stuttering through space like a skipping record, its brass shell covered in crystalline growths that pulsed with inner light. Half its face was missing, revealing complex tonal resonators beneath. Dalvis raised her staff, but Raiden stopped her. "Wait, look at its movements." The Centurion wasn't attacking, it was gesturing, pointing down a corridor, then to itself, then down again. Its single remaining optical lens flickered, with something that looked disturbingly like desperation. "It wants to show us something," Dalvis realized. They followed. The Centurion led them deeper, through chambers filled with machinery that predated its own construction. Here the Dwemer had been excavating something older, vast chambers carved from volcanic rock by hands unknown, filled with obelisks covered in script that made Dalvis's vision double. The Centurion stopped before one particular obelisk, its lens focusing on a specific sequence of symbols. Dalvis approached, her scholar's instinct overriding her fear. She could read Dwemeris fluently, but this was older. Proto-Dwemeris, perhaps, or something that influenced Dwemer language after they'd already developed it. The symbols began to glow as she read them, and suddenly she wasn't reading. She was experiencing. Memories flooded her mind, but they weren't hers. Kagrenak before the heart, tools in hand but hesitating. Not because of doubt, because of understanding. The heart wasn't Lorcan's at all. It was a marker, a boundary stone, a warning carved in flesh by something that existed before the Aedra, before Mundus, before the concept of before had meaning. The Dwemer hadn't vanished. They'd been translated into mathematics, converted from matter into pure frequency, absorbed into the architecture itself. And they were screaming. Screaming because they'd discovered the truth. Reality was a song, and something vast and hungry was learning its melody. Dalvis gasped, pulling away from the obelisk. The Centurion's lens dimmed, satisfied. "It's a memory repository," she breathed. "This Centurion, it's not malfunctioning. It's the only one that refused the translation. It stayed behind to warn anyone who came after." Raiden's face was grim. Warn them about what? The answer came from everywhere at once, from the walls, from the air, from inside Dalvis's own skull. "The door is almost open, Act 3. The heart chamber. They found the heart chamber 3 days later, Though time had lost all meaning in the deep ruins, Dalvis could feel herself aging and youthing with each step, her hair growing long, then short, then long again, as they traversed passages that existed across multiple timelines simultaneously. The chamber was vast beyond comprehension, not because of its physical size, but because it occupied more dimensions than human perception could process. The heart of Lorcan sat at its center, but calling it a heart was like calling the ocean a puddle. It was a doorway, carved from a substance that was neither matter nor energy, pulsing with rhythms that predated the aedric creation of linear time. The Dwemer machinery around it, Kagranak's tools, the great tonal resonators, the mathematical instruments, all designed not to tap its power, but to keep it closed. They were trying to seal it, Dalvis realized, her voice hollow. The tribunal, the Nerevarine prophecy, the destruction of the heart, all of it was theater, a distraction. The real battle has always been keeping this door closed. Around the heart, carved into the chamber floor, were thousands of Dwemer names. Not memorial plaques, containment runes. The entire race had sacrificed themselves, converting their consciousness into a living seal. But the seal was failing. Cracks radiated from the heart like frozen lightning. Through them, Dalvis could see other places. A city of brass towers that bent like trees in wind. Oceans of pure mathematics where concepts swam like fish. And watching from every crack, vast and patient, the architect. It looked like a Dwemer, but wrong. Too many angles, too many limbs existing in states of superposition. Its face shifted between every member of that lost race, speaking with a voice composed of their stolen harmonics. Dalvis Arabar, it said, and hearing her name in that voice felt like violation. Thank you for coming home. I'm not... You are. It gestured, and suddenly she saw herself, truly saw herself. Her soul wasn't natural. It was a construct, woven from frequencies by the tribunal centuries ago, and inserted into a bloodline during a convergence event. She was a living key, designed to resonate with the heart chamber, created as insurance in case the Dwemer seal ever needed emergency maintenance. She was a tool, had always been a tool. Her curiosity, her dreams, her entire life, carefully orchestrated to bring her here at precisely this moment. The tribunal is gone, the architect continued. Their godhood faded. The Dwemer seal weakens with each passing year, but you can be the new anchor. Merge with the frequencies, become the door's guardian. Its smile was terrible. Or open it. Let me show you what lies beyond. Truth absolute, knowledge infinite, the end of uncertainty. Dalvis felt the pull. Part of her, the scholar, the seeker, the part that had driven her entire life, wanted desperately to say yes, to see what the Dwemer had seen, to understand. But Raiden's hand on her shoulder anchored her. Don't listen, the wise woman said. It's not offering knowledge, it's offering dissolution. You saw what happened to the Dwemer. They became the architecture, yes, but they lost themselves. They're not conscious anymore, they're just resonance, echoes pretending to be people. The architect's expression didn't change, but the cracks in the heart widened. You cannot maintain the seal, it said. You are one consciousness against thousands. The door will open. If not today, then tomorrow. If not this century, then the next. I am patient. I am inevitable. I am the space between all things, and eventually, all things fall into space. Act 4. The choice between lies. The Centurion moved between Dalvis and the heart, its broken form taking a protective stance. Its remaining optical lens projected images, memories from before its refusal, Kagranak's final moments. Not triumphant, terrified. Realizing too late that activating the tools wouldn't elevate the Dwemer to godhood. It would make them comprehensible to the architect, would let it finally understand the frequencies that compose their consciousness, would give it the ability to translate them. The moment of conversion, thousands of Dwemer screaming as they dissolved into pure mathematics, their individual consciousness absorbed into the architecture, like water into sand, becoming the seal not through heroism, but through horror. And in those final seconds before his own translation, Kagranak making a choice. encoding a failsafe into the very last Centurion, a backup consciousness, a witness to carry the warning forward. The Centurion gestured toward Dalvis, then to itself, then to the heart, its meaning clear. I refused translation once. You can too. But Raiden shook her head. It's not that simple. You were built to resist tonal conversion. She's made of it. If she tries to walk away, the architect will just pull her back. She's already too entangled. Then what do I do? Dalvis asked, feeling the frequencies building around her, the architect's presence pressing against her consciousness like deep water pressure. You make the choice the tribunal never told anyone about, Raiden said quietly. The choice they made that damned them all. She produced a dagger, simple, volcanic glass, impossibly ancient. This is made from the mountain's first eruption, before the heart, before the Dwemer, before anyone thought to dig too deep. She pressed it into Dalvis's hand. The tribunal used their godhood to lie, to create false histories, manipulate prophecies, control narratives. They built an entire civilization on the foundation of a beautiful, necessary deception. What deception? That the heart of Lorcan is divine, that it matters, that it's worth protecting or destroying or studying or anything else. Raiden's eyes were fierce. But what if it's not? What if it's just a door we never should have found? What if the only way to protect reality is to make everyone, including the forces trying to open that door, forget it exists? Dalvis understood. A seal of ignorance. Stronger than any Dwemer mathematics, more permanent than any tribunal lie. Raiden gestured to the chamber around them. You're connected to the frequencies. You can rewrite them, not to keep the door closed, to make everyone believe there never was a door, to edit it out of reality's memory. That would unmake me. If I'm woven from these frequencies and I delete them. Yes? The architect laughed, a sound like breaking glass across infinite dimensions. She won't do it. Mortals never choose oblivion. They always choose to know, even when knowing destroys them. It is their most predictable flaw. Dalvis looked at the dagger in her hand, at the cracks spreading across the heart, at Raiden's weathered face, full of a sorrow that spoke of watching too many people make this choice before, at the Centurion, still standing guard, its refusal eternal. She thought about the Dwemer, their brilliance turned to architecture, about the tribunal, their godhood built on necessary lies, about herself, a construct designed for this single moment, her entire existence a footnote to someone else's contingency plan. And she thought about Morrowind, her Morrowind oblivious above them, the city of Vivek, the Ashlander camps, the Telvanni mushroom towers, all of it existing because someone, centuries ago, had been willing to lie beautifully enough to save it. I'm a scholar, she said quietly. My whole life has been about discovering truth. I know, Raiden said. And the truth is, Dalvis raised the volcanic glass dagger, feeling it resonate with frequencies older than the false history she was about to create. Some things should stay unknown. Aced 5, the beautiful lie. She cut herself open, not flesh, but frequency. The mathematics of her constructed soul spilled out in visible harmonics, a rainbow of impossible colors that humans had no names for. She could feel herself unraveling, her consciousness dissolving like sugar in water, but she held on just long enough to reshape what remained. The dagger became a tuning fork. Her blood became ink. The chamber itself became her canvas. She rewrote the frequencies, not violently, gently, carefully, with a scholar's precision. She edited the Dwemer ruins to remove all evidence of the door. She altered the heart's resonance to become merely divine, not dimensional. She wove new mathematics into the mountain itself, creating a retroactive history where the architect had never existed, where the Dwemer vanished for different reasons, where Red Mountain was exactly what everyone already believed it to be. The architect raged against the rewriting, trying to force its way through before the door could be forgotten, but it was fighting consciousness itself, fighting the collective weight of reality's new memory, fighting the most powerful force in existence, consensus. No, it screamed, you cannot unknow me. I am real. I am... And then it wasn't. Not destroyed, unremembered, edited out of the narrative of reality itself, relegated to the space between spaces where things that never happened go to not exist. Dalvis felt herself going too, her identity fragmenting, her memories redistributing themselves across the mountain, becoming new legends, new myths, new lies that would protect the truth by burying it. The Centurion caught her as she fell, or rather, as she dissolved. Its damaged lens focused on her fading face. "Tell me," she whispered, her voice already becoming wind, "was I ever real? Or was I always just frequencies pretending to be a person?" The Centurion didn't answer, couldn't answer. But in its lens she saw her reflection, and for just a moment she looked exactly like every Dwemer who'd made this choice before her. Different faces, same sacrifice. Raiden was already forgetting. Dalvis could see it happening, the wise woman's memories rewriting themselves in real time. Soon she would remember coming to these ruins alone, would remember finding only empty chambers and defunct machinery, would remember that the scholar Dalvis Arobar had died in an ash storm 3 months ago. Tragic, such a waste of talent. "Thank you," Dalvis said, though Raiden could no longer hear her. Then she let go. Her consciousness fractured into 10,000 pieces, each one embedding itself into the mountain's architecture, becoming new safety valves, new seals, new lies layered on top of the ancient truth like scar tissue over a wound. The heart chamber sealed itself not with Dwemer mathematics, but with something stronger, collective amnesia. Within minutes, even the chamber itself forgot why it existed. The cracks disappeared. The door was not closed. It had never been open. The architect did not rage in its dimensional prison. It had never been imprisoned because it had never existed at all. Reality smoothed itself like wind-blown ash, erasing the evidence of its own rewriting. Above in Morrowind, no one noticed anything had changed, because nothing had. The mountain still smoked. The ash still fell. The history books still told their comfortable lies about Nerevar and prophecies and the fall of the tribunal. And deep beneath Red Mountain, in ruins that were no longer remarkable, a damaged Centurion stood guard over empty chambers, its purpose forgotten, its vigil eternal, alone except for the whisper of wind through brass corridors. Wind that almost sounded like mathematics. 3 months later, in a Telvanni tower in Sadrith Mora, a scholar named Meris Veloth discovered a fascinating pattern in historical ash storm records. The particles seemed to move in spirals, beautiful, meaningless spirals that repeated every 47 seconds. She would spend the next decade studying them, writing 3 books on the subject, becoming moderately famous in academic circles for her theories about natural tonal phenomena in volcanic environments. She never dreamed in mathematics, never heard voices in the frequencies, never wondered if the mountain was trying to tell her something because the mountain had nothing to say. It was just a mountain, red and angry, and perfectly, beautifully ordinary. In Aldrun, Ashlander wise women told their grandchildren old stories about the Dwemer and their hubris, never quite remembering why the stories felt so important. In the ruins beneath Red Mountain, treasure hunters found brass gears and empty machinery, disappointed by the lack of anything truly mysterious. The temple preached about the tribunal's legacy. The empire enforced its laws. The people of Morrowind lived and died and dreamed their small dreams, safe in a world that made sense. And if sometimes, just sometimes, travelers near Red Mountain heard a sound like humming in the ash storms, they assumed it was wind. Because what else could it be? The mountain kept its secrets. The door that never was stayed forever closed. And somewhere in the spaces between moments, a scholar who had chosen ignorance over knowledge watched over the lie she'd become, grateful that no one would ever know her name, content to be forgotten if forgetting kept them safe. The ash fell in spirals. The mountain dreamed, and in the dreaming there was peace.